welcome back everyone to Dusk, a Too Lit podcast. And today I am joined by our ensemble. Ensemble, make some noise. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So today I'm joined by four members of our amazing ensemble from Dusk. And introduce yourselves, friends.
I'm Lizzy. I played the baseball and I was the Be a Ballet double. And the rest of the ensemble.
I'm Sarah. I was the dance captain, one of the dancing eggs, and the evil antagonist vampire, and then one of the random students that just like has a line.
My name is Molly. I was many things. I was the Bia and Jenny understudy, but then within the ensemble, I was the Dr. Dad body double for You Saved Me. Catch that in the pro shot. I'm also the iconic sayer of the line, I don't get emos, dude.
I'm Helen. I was the deer. And many other things in the ensemble. And then I also understudied Mom and Aura.
Awesome. I think it's also really interesting if we all went around and said kind of where we are located so that the audience knows how ridiculous trying to coordinate all of this actually was. So I'm in Edinburgh.
I am in New York.
I currently live in Michigan. At the moment of being in Dusk, though, I lived in Edinburgh.
I live in Atlanta, Georgia.
And I am in Southern California. So it's 8 a.m. for me.
Yeah,
very fun.
Absolutely, it is. So we'll probably talk about this a little bit later on, but about the rehearsal process before we were meeting in person and about how it was absolutely insane to try and accommodate everyone's hours of the day and schedules while we were trying to put together a show from across the entire freaking earth. But why don't we start off by talking about what has us too lit this week? What are we just stupid excited about for this week?
Too lit this week. Two things. I'm doing a trapeze class, and that's really cool and scary and really fun. And I feel like I'm flying. And I got a puppy. Her name is Maisie.
I love her so much. At the time of recording this, and maybe I can tilt the computer so people can see, it has been snowing. It's been like a blizzard up in the north of the United States. So we have a lot of snow, and I don't think I've ever seen this much snow in my life. So I'm really excited about it, and I'm gonna try and make a snowman at some point.
Very fun.
I guess this is too lit. I don't know if exciting is the right word, but I start tech for the show that I'm in Atlanta today at 1:00. I have a 10-hour rehearsal, so that's lit. Sometimes, yeah.
I tried mead yesterday.
Isn't it so
bad.
good?
Oh, I hated it. Well, this place had like a wide variety of flavors. Some were like good, like I would drink it again, and others were like so horrible. So I wouldn't say I'm like a casual mead drinker now, but thrilled to have the experience.
I would say my two lit moments from this week is I literally just finished giving a workshop for Not So Nice Theater Company, and it was really, really fun, and everyone really enjoyed it. So it kind of made my day. And I had the goal of reading 60 books this year, and I am on book 12. So I think I'm doing pretty good with that goal.
I'm only on book 2.
Yeah, I'm also only on book 2.
Yeah.
Mine.
I am about to finish book 12. So
I will say.
That's so impressive.
Yeah, I've got mine down here too. Because I was reading right before this to kind of center myself for the pod, you know. Yeah, so I would love to hear, because I don't think we ever had this conversation during the Fringe process, but why did you audition for Dusk and how did it come to be that you auditioned for Dusk? Besides Sarah, because I know why Sarah auditioned for Dusk.
Okay, so I was just like scrolling through backstage, hoping and praying to find a job. And so I saw it on backstage and I was just kind of skimming through and I didn't even realize that it was a parody. And I was like, this sounds a lot like Twilight. And then I went back through and thoroughly read and I was like, oh, that would make sense. And I saw that they were going to Scotland and I loved Twilight. I was obsessed as a kid. So it kind of just felt like, how can I not, you know? There's no way that I can't audition for this. And yeah, and then I ended up visiting my friend in Mexico right when the callbacks were happening. And so I like filmed it in her laundry room and so those weren't great, but we made it and phew. And I'm so grateful for one of the best experiences of my life.
At the time, like I mentioned, I lived in Edinburgh when Dusk was going on, and Cosette and I were roomies. Uh, so I think the particular night that the casting call came across my eyes, I was crying in Cosette's room because I was upset about something. Um, I had seen like the really viral TikToks of the workshop that Dusk had done with the first throw of the meadow and oh, what else went viral? Dan and Morgan can kill me. I can't remember much behind that. But getting like the meadow thing across my page, I'm like, that's really freaking funny. I'm so glad someone's finally doing that. And then Cosette had found the specific casting call for Fringe, and she was like, "Here, does this make you feel better?" And then I went on a rant of, "Oh my God, we have to get in."
Um, it's really funny because whenever I told people that I was auditioning for this and then particularly that I was cast, they said, I've never heard of anything that was more perfect for you to do ever. And that's because I love Twilight so deeply in my soul. I reread Twilight and New Moon every year. Every few years, I do a full series reread. Anytime I've ever been sad in my life, I read Twilight. It makes me happy. And then on the flip side of that, the Edinburgh Fringe was like my dream that I thought I would never get to do. It like, especially just because, I mean, I had never been to Scotland. I'd never been to the UK before last year. And so it just felt very unattainable. And so when the TikTok started going viral of the workshop, I got the viral TikToks on my For You page. And I was like, wow, this is hysterical. So I gave the Dusk account a follow. And you should all follow it too if you don't. Anyways. And then they posted the casting call. I saw the casting call on TikTok because I already followed them. And I peed my pants like a chihuahua who got too excited. I was like, oh my God. And because I was like just graduated college, kind of like Lizzy, I needed a job. I was like, what sounds more perfect? And I was like, you know what? If I don't try, if I don't send in an audition, like even if it doesn't work out, like I need to know that I tried. And hey, look at this. It worked out. And it was definitely life-changing. And I want to live in Edinburgh. It's my favorite place on the planet. Okay.
Let's all move back.
Yeah, for real.
Go
honestly.
again?
Yeah.
And let's go.
Perhaps Victoria?
My audition story is similar to Molly's. I saw the viral TikToks and then I think they like posted a tease of like, we're gonna have auditions. And I was like, save. And then it popped up again and it was like, okay, I guess I'll submit and like we'll see what happens. And then I got a call back and I was like, oh my God, a callback? And then well, I had like a very long journey of finding out I was in it with some email troubles. But then I had been to Edinburgh like a year before and I love Edinburgh and I'd always wanted to perform at the Fringe too. So it seemed like an opportunity that I couldn't like not go for. And then it all worked out.
Are you willing to share the email troubles?
Oh yeah. So I did the initial audition and then the callback, and then I did a meeting with Dan and Morgan. And they were like, you'll hear in like 2 weeks. And then I didn't hear anything. And I was like, oh man, like I guess I didn't get it. And I was like, but I feel like they would email me to say I didn't get it. Like they seemed like the kind of people who wouldn't leave me wondering. So probably like a month after the meeting, I emailed and I was like, hey, just wanted to like follow up. And they immediately emailed back and were like, I'm so sorry. Like, we've had issues of emails not sending. So I just like never got the email with the offer. So I don't think I found out until like maybe beginning of June, mid-June. And then I had to like figure out, could I go on a leave of absence of my work very quickly? So it was like a very stressful 2 weeks of trying to sort everything out. But then it all worked out. But those 2 weeks were very, very stressful. And just us emailing back and forth of like, can you let me know by this day? What about this day? So I guess Gmail was not on my side.
Doesn't even sound like a you problem.
No, it
That's
really doesn't.
nothing you could control.
But it does totally sound like something that would happen to you after many a conversation with you. Just like if it were to happen to anyone in this group right here, I would believe it happened to Helen.
Yeah. If anyone's gonna have weird bad luck, it would be me.
I remember seeing the casting call come up on Facebook because I still use that, even though it is almost solely populated by older generations currently. But it came across my Facebook and I was kind of madly applying to absolutely everything around this time last year. I think I was like 40 auditions deep by the time I heard back from Dusk. Just submitting to literally everything that I was like, I could maybe fit into this. And at the time, I was already supposed to be doing a different Fringe production, and that completely fell through, which was fine. And actually ended up being way better because we ended up doing 27 shows instead of 20 shows. And I remember sharing it with Sarah, and they were just like, go for it. You've got to do it. You'd be perfect for it. And I was like, this seems really weird, but we have nothing to lose. And I remember us doing the audition tapes in between the cycles of our washing machine because our washing machine and dryer sounded like it was taking off.
I hate that thing so much. I hope it's having a terrible day.
It's having a terrible time. That washing machine in particular. But I remember us setting up and doing takes and being like, okay, I'm ready. And then it just whirling and shaking the entire floor. And us being like, we can't do it right now. So we would have to wait. And then our
Didn't
roommate.
we hang up a blanket
We
as
did.
well for those
We
ones?
did. Hashtag shitty rigs. We
Yeah.
had our comforters, like creating a sound barrier around us so that we could actually record. And they were some of the most unhinged self-tapes I think I've ever done. But they were also really, really fun. And we both ended up getting in on Dusk, and look where we are now, a year later. Oh my gosh. So that was my Fringe audition story. So Sarah and I have done the Fringe before, and we had crazy experiences before, but I would love to hear about your guys' experience and particularly the most unhinged thing that happened to you at the Fringe that you either experienced during the show when we were performing or outside of the show and you just witnessed in the wilds of Edinburgh during the Fringe.
All right. So I had never heard of the Fringe before, to be honest. Uneducated swine. And but it was such an amazing experience. And the whole thing was kind of unhinged, so it's really hard to narrow it down to that one moment. Because every day was just kind of a new level of unhinged and stuff. But I would say for those of you that were on the bus to in the Highlands tour, I'd say that was one of them.
We were all on the same bus, right? No, wait,
Yeah.
I
Helen was on a
wasn't.
different one.
I was on a different bus listening to like peaceful music while you guys were really going
ours
through
was
it.
dude, ours was the wildest thing.
We were like listening to like music from Brave, and he's like telling us these beautiful folk stories, and then we'd meet up with you guys. And I was like, what is going on?
4 hours of sleep too, and he was getting mad at us for dozing off in the back of the bus, and he was playing like crazy music the whole time, and he would not stop talking. And then Dylan's Monster energy drink
No, Lizzy, that's mine. That's mine. Shut, don't ruin it.
anything. And so I think that was one of them. Let's see. Or I'd like to say carrying the garment bags up and down the stairs of the bus.
The garment bags would bruise my shoulders daily because of how much the ensemble specifically had to carry to and from. I think everyone had a lot of costumes. We had a lot of costumes.
A key thing to point out is that we were not able to keep our costumes at the venue every night. So for audience understanding of our plight, we had to bring all of our costumes every night to the venue and take them home with us every evening. And I think each of us had at least 25 pounds worth of costumes
Of
and
stuff.
assorted accoutrements.
And plus wigs. We all had wigs.
The poor wigs
And the
that were like
garment bags.
shoved in the bottom.
Well, I'm just
I
also
like
like
that
a
they were-
person who prepares for disaster. Like any show that I'm doing, I will make sure that if the theater has a freaking earthquake, then I'm like ready to go. I'll be fine. So it's like I sort of made it worse for myself. That I was like, I'm not leaving my hairbrush at home. Like it's coming with me, and all of these other heavy things that they did have a good place in my garment bag, and I did use them. But
And then it's like you've got the Laducas and you've got the Converse and you've got I had my point shoes and
Mhm.
no
I was
skates.
also going to talk about the bus tour driver being one of the more unhinged.
Which thing?
If he's listening to this, you should probably skip ahead a little bit. If
Here's
you
some
want to keep
feedback
like
for
your
you.
pride
No, he needs
intact.
to hear it. No,
He
he
needs
needs
the
to hear
feedback.
it. He needs to hear the truth.
For our listeners, if you've ever met a person who like commits to a bit, which apparently his bit was like, oh, these young kids don't like me, and then like, or at least he committed to talking to all the time and like just not really shutting up, making out of taste jokes, and then only in like the last 2 hours. And if you ever do a Highlands bus tour, definitely recommend if you're in Scotland. It's lovely. It's an all-day experience. So maybe in the last 2 hours of this bus ride, he finally started to get that self-aware bone of like, oh, but you're done hearing me talk. And he was like sassy about it. And I'm like, no, you've already committed to not shutting up. Like, don't back out now. I spent the whole like bus ride, especially when I couldn't really handle it. It was a lot of information that I already knew, but it is really, he just loved to hear himself talk. There's a lot of interesting Scottish history that these tour guides will tell you about. And then, like, you think he would stop when he was done making his point, but then he'd just find random other bits of history to talk about. But I just bought my little earbuds, put them in, and listened to Hozier Unreal Unearth all the way through multiple times.
You're
'cause
so
the
real
album
for
had
that.
just come out.
As you should. As you
And
should.
now he's my top artist on Spotify, and I'm in like the top 0.1% of fans, and I'm going to see him in concert. So who really
I
won?
saw him a couple months
jealous.
ago.
Oh my God, was it
I
good?
saw him at the Hollywood Bowl, which if you don't know the Hollywood Bowl, it's like a huge outdoor amphitheater in LA. So we're like under the stars with trees and with Hozier. And it was his last US date before he released more.
Oh
But it
my
was so
gosh.
good. It was life-changing.
Am I allowed to mention the fact that I had COVID? Because that was also fucking unhinged. into our second week of the run, which is also when a lot of things were happening. Like they were coordinating the filming of the pro shot and the recording of the album and stuff like that. And I also had just general schoolwork to do because me and Cosette were completing our master's degrees at the time. Woke up one morning, I'm like, I feel awful. I'll just take a test and keep getting ready for my day. I had like a film shoot to be at. It was one of our days off. And then it came back positive. I was like, no, 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 no. And I started crying. It was a time. It just sucked. I spent every single night when you guys would have been performing Twilight, watching the Twilight movies in solidarity. Um, but yeah, it just felt awful because that was the first time ever in my performing career where I just could not go on. Um, y'all adapted awesomely. It's sort of like the way we sort of use the dance captain as well was to help coordinate if someone needed to step out of something, where would the ensemble fill in for each other? How would we swing it? Um, and then I ended up being the only person we had to swing for. Or like in a sense that I was not in the building. There were some times where we like just switched each parts around because we were tired or needing a break. But that was a time.
I loved doing the egg dance while you were out, though. So
It's so fun.
It is really, really funny. Other unhinged moments, Molly and Helen?
Okay. I'm about to take y'all on a journey if you did not experience this story. Well, the first thing I will say, unhinged every single day, especially when me, Helen, and Lizzy lived at Harriet Watt, was simply taking the 40-minute bus ride with our garment bags twice a day. Oh my gosh. Anyway,
The bus that we had to run for.
Yeah, every night.
Well,
Like we had 11:26. 11:26.
We had 10 minutes.
At like 11:15.
We had 10 minutes to get undressed, pack everything up, and then 10 minutes to run to the bus 10 minutes away. So we're like running through the streets of Edinburgh with our garment bags.
Oh no.
Every night. Every night. That was crazy. But I'm also going to talk about this bus tour, but something that's not about the tour guide. I will say he found out that there are Americans on the bus and made us play guess the state for like about an hour, where he would be like, this famous person, y'all know where they're from? And we're like, literally for an hour. But okay, so for context, we only had 2 off days once the run started. We had 2 Sundays off the entire time. This trip happened on the second Sunday we had off, and this was near the end of the Fringe, like the Sunday before the last week. So we were running on fumes. Anyways, like we were already in the trenches, tired. We had a show the night before and had to be out this bus thing at like 8 in the morning. And so we are on this tour. It's 8 hours. We get to the last hour. We are like driving the bus back into Edinburgh. And Dylan, who he played Edwin. If you're listening, I'm sure you know who Dylan is, had gotten this monster energy. And he brought it on the bus with him in the morning at like 8 a.m., but didn't drink it. And all day we could be like, are you going to drink your monster? And he was like, yeah, later. And so he put it in the overhead compartment on the bus. So me, Lizzy, and Zia, who plays Mom, were in the back 3 across seats. And Dylan was in the seat right in front of us. And I'm in the middle. And so we are literally driving back into Edinburgh. Like we see the city, like we're like, oh my, this horrible, like we can get off this bus away from this tour guide, like all this stuff. Like we were so excited. We wanted to eat dinner. It was like the most exciting thing ever. And then all of a sudden I start feeling a spray, like that's the best way I could describe it, is a light misting on my face. And I being like, somewhat like, because it was raining, obviously, Edinburgh. And so I'm like, wow, just like, there a window open that's been open? Like, why am I getting wet right now in the middle of the seat? And me and Zia are like feeling around. We're like, where's that coming from? Where's that coming from? Dylan had put his monster on the overhead compartment, and it had been like rolling back and forth the whole time, banging. And in this final moment, it busted open and was spraying monster on my head. It was peeing on me. Anyway, that was definitely the most unhinged. It was just like the final like straw of like this whole experience, and like it was so close to the end, and I was like, Dylan, if your monster doesn't stop pissing on me right now, oh my god, yeah, and I'm never gonna let him live that down. That's like our little joke. We always joke about the monster because it was just like what was happening. Anyway, that's the monster story. Now you know.
Okay. I think my most unhinged moment was the changing situation for all of our quick changes and costume storage.
No.
Because I like knew about Fringe, but I don't think I fully was prepared for the shared space aspect of Fringe. And I don't think any of us were prepared for how little backstage space we had. So I think it was like me, Lizzy, Molly, Zia, and Beck found like a corner to change in, like the first show where like we had never done these quick changes in the venue before. And we found this space and we set up our stuff there and it worked. And then when we added the matinee shows, we weren't allowed to be in that space. And mid-show, they made us move. And then we found like space in the hallway leading to the restroom for everybody at this venue.
So
they would come in and think they were like in a backstage area, and we're like, no, down the hall. Keep going. And then we got kicked out of that space. So then we were just changing in the bathroom. It's like fully in the women's bathroom.
If I can add to that experience as well, Dusk ran the entire length of Fringe. That's a little out of the ordinary for shows that usually do go. They'll usually be there for like a week. So the really cool ones get to run the whole time. But that means there's constantly a rotation of shows coming in and out and like taking their stuff in and out of the backstage space. So you'd really get into a groove of like, my costumes can sit here on this rack that someone else bought in that's not being used in our show. And then like you'd come in for another week of shows and it would be gone. And then you're just like, my routine.
I think I also have to add in how unbearably hot the venue was. Which you think like, oh, Scotland, it's like 50 degrees outside. You wouldn't think that it would be over 90 degrees inside. But since we were the last show of the night, the lights had been on all day in this pretty small room. And there was just no escaping the heat. There was like a little portable air conditioning unit that did not work. It just radiated more heat and then would leak water. So that was maybe the most unhinged part. But I will say, when I like describe this experience to people, I say I was the most exhausted I've ever been in my life. But the people were so great that like if it had been any other group of people, we would not have made it through. But like we had such a good group that we really just like bonded together and survived.
Helen just talked about the backstage slip and slide incident. And Jamie lost two of his mustaches to the backstage slip and slide, and the
That's where they went?
Yeah, they got stuck in them.
Ew.
Yep. One of them was sacrificed to a puddle. The other one was sucked into the machine itself. You never know what's going to happen during the Fringe, and as Sarah was saying, you know, you've got shows just coming in and rotating in and out throughout all of the weeks. You know, some people only do a couple of days, some people do, you know, the whole run, some people do a mixture of weeks, or they alternate. And when I was waiting in that little waiting area that we had for the evening shows, one night I was standing in there because it was significantly cooler and I had a longer break in between when I came off from I Know It's Best to Meet the Family. And I walked in there and there were 4 people in not really clothing carrying a coffin up the stairs.
That's so normal.
It's a full coffin. Like it wasn't like a prop coffin. This was like a legitimate coffin. Up the 3 flights of stairs to the dressing room. And they were not wearing what I would think one might wear in Scotland in August. Um, it was like butterfly kisses of fabric is what I can describe what they were wearing, and carrying this coffin, and the Greenside's venue workers were like trying to escort them up the stairs carrying this coffin, and I was like, what is my life watching this happen? What is happening? I think something hysterical as well is that we received so much feedback about how hot the venue was. And we were like, we noticed because we were
Well, yes.
we were dancing and singing for over 2 hours in that same room that all of you were enjoying watching us perform seated for 2.5 hours. So we noticed how hot it was because we were all wearing multiple costumes at any one point in time.
Yeah.
I think the only
The
time I
morph
was
suit
only
stays
wearing,
on.
yeah, the only time I was only wearing one costume was prom. I was wearing other costumes underneath costumes underneath costumes for the entirety of the show, with the exception of the prom scene. So, boy, we all done been knew that it was that it was hot in there. It was really warm.
We all got very comfortable being half dressed,
Yeah.
especially in the morph suit, because you don't have your hands. So it was just like off from the waist up.
Mhm.
And it was
We
just like the
created some
fact of
looks.
life. Yeah, I like the halter top, tied
Yeah.
around your neck. That's a classic.
Once you get it on your
that
hands and then
dopamine.
also the hood over your face, like you're strapped in ready to go. So, and also because it's so hot back there, you don't want to be doing that until the last possible moment. Was there a moment for you guys, Lizzy, Molly, Helen, like changing into prom where you just take the morph suit off finally and it just feels like peeling off skin?
I found that the morph suit was cooler than my prom costume. Because when we were rehearsing, our rehearsal space was so cold, so we were like freezing in the morph suits because they don't retain any heat. So taking that off and then, yeah, just sweat, just damp. But taking that off and then putting on a floor-length dress and a wig that like traps all of the heat in, I feel like, at least for me, I got way hotter in prom.
Yeah. And the wig with like all the hair is just like sticking to your skin.
Ugh, ugh. I don't miss the textural experience of performing the show sometimes, because one of the worst things in the world is getting a synthetic wig hair underneath your contact lens.
Oh.
And that happened to me on a few occasions. Also, people get hurt during shows, like something's gonna happen. And I distinctly remember Helen and I slapping each other in the face during prom on different evenings.
We had this like high five moment.
Down, and there was at least 1 or 2 evenings where both of us just like full on smacked each other in the face because our height difference is hysterical, and we were trying so hard to try and make contact and ended up just smacking each other at least twice.
And it was like that into a freeze, so then we'd be like freezing and laughing because we just punched each other in the face.
It also reminds me of the unhinged moment where we have that bat in the baseball scene, and there was a moment where Andy went to swing the bat and he like fake swings, and Eva leaned in instead of leaning back in the swing and fully got smacked in the face.
I helped her with the quick change after that, and she came back and she was like, I got hit in the face. And I'm like, you don't just say that like casually. Are you okay?
And that was the night that her partner was there too, sitting in the front row, and he just went and I turned around and looked at Dylan, and we were like crying, like trying to hold it together for the rest of baseball, which is a very, very long song. It is like 34 8 counts, if I remember correctly, 32 or 34 8 counts. And this happened like right at the beginning, and we were trying so hard to just keep it together. Keep it together. Oh goodness. Well, we've already talked about prom a little bit. Helen, do you want to talk about prom themes
I would love to talk about the prom themes.
and how that came about?
Okay. So when we were deciding our like ensemble characters, specifically for Car Crash Ballet, we were trying to think of things that like we could be fighting over enough that we wouldn't notice Bia getting hit by a car. And I had like the yellow button down shirt, so I decided I would be like the student body president, and I was trying to get people to plan prom with me. And at some point, I don't think it started at the first show, but at some point I started telling people what the prom theme was, like during the Collins entrance. I don't have a list of all of them because I didn't write them down as they were happening, but I'll share some hits. Yeah, I feel like I have most of them. Let me pick some favorites. I think the first one was International Space Station. We had Darty, like a day party. Mitochondria, backstage slip and slide. Am I allowed to curse?
Yeah.
Okay, Big Booty Bitches. I think that one was like a big hit. Mr. Worldwide.
That one was my favorite.
That just turned into everyone in prom going Fireball. And it was like passing the prom theme throughout the show. Of like I would tell Lizzy and Molly in like one of the first scenes we had, and then I would tell Cosette during prom usually. What other ones? Oh, Triangle Shirtwaist Factory.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was another show at our venue about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, which was excellent.
My favorite
Rat or Frog, which has even more lore to it.
I could not keep it together when you just went rat. I did not.
Did we already say, was there a Founding Fathers one?
Yes, there was Founding Fathers. There was Party Rockers. What else do we have? Oh, the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
I remember the Jonas Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure one was Jonas Brothers.
Wasn't there non-franchise specific magic school?
We had Unspecified Vampire Franchise.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I think that was the last one.
We did Vampire Diaries, which was crazy, and it was like a multiple day conversation.
Yeah, everyone in this show has their Vampire Diaries character assigned to them.
Caroline and who put that together?
Oh, it was
Morgan and I worked on it a little bit.
Okay.
It was me and Audrey originally, and then Morgan was like really invested in it. And
of course.
We came up with this like master list of the definitive list of the cast.
There was lots of debate about it too.
I want to just specify the fact that, like Helen said, she would tell me and Lizzy this during the Collins entrance, where we're supposed to be doing like oohs and ahs and all that fun stuff. And we would sometimes, especially as the run went on, near the end of the run, we'd be laughing so hard we could not even be getting it out. And the one time that Lizzy referenced a second ago was when it was rat or frog, which the context is you're either a rat or you're a frog. Which one are you? And Helen goes, so it's like, ooh, over and over again. And Helen is doing this. She's like writing on her thing. She goes, ooh, rat.
Rat.
And we were hurtful. And not, like, I don't think us laughing was, like, bad for the scene, but, like, it was very obvious that, like, we were being unprofessional, but it was amazing. It was the best thing ever. I was like, rat.
It was us trying to sing and being like, ooh. Like we could not get sound out.
There was Molly and I were a pair for Car Crash Ballet, and there were several. we got into our argument and we would just wait. Okay, I think I remember this correctly. There was one day right before the freeze, in that choreography where we freeze and then I think I sneezed like on you. And then we just like were locked eyes and then I sneezed and I can't I can't move to cover my mouth. It felt so bad. And then we just had to stare at each other and try not to cry.
Car Crash Ballet just became more unhinged as the run went on. And like as different people were out of the show or out of that scene, it would change. So then what we were fighting about would change.
For context, and I think this shows up in the pro shot, it's usually 4 of us on stage. For the matinees, it had to be 3 of us. So I think you'll see the version in the pro shot that's the 3 of us, where it's me, Helen, and Molly just arguing, which was very odd. It threw me off my rhythm.
Yeah, there was a lot of modification that had to be made throughout the show as people got sick or had other commitments that popped up, which really gave us a run for our money. I think it kept all of us on our toes because I think there was like an entire week where just something happened before or in the middle of every single show. And keep in mind, if you didn't know this, we met each other the week before the show started. And so not only were we still trying to get this show like in our bones, we were still trying to figure out who everyone was as human beings and trying to problem solve with people that we literally just met, which I think is a testament to, you know, how awesome theater and musical theater and honestly the Fringe experience can be, because it brought all of us together to do this absolutely crazy, insane show in such a short amount of time. And we're still friends afterwards, which is also incredible.
One thing I really appreciated was, where was I going with this? Like, people don't, when you come to Fringe and people are performing in like tiny rooms that are someone's office when it's not being used as a Fringe venue, you kind of forget that you're dealing with about 3,000 professionals all in one place. So yes, there's a lot of community theater, but still up to a very high standard at Fringe. Like you get the professional experience without a lot of the amenities of like a nice theater or something. I don't know. We're beating that dead horse with the Forest Theater at this point.
I think it's like a testament to the like bond of the ensemble of how we covered for each other.
Yeah.
Of like someone, I know I had like an injury in the middle and it wasn't even like a question of whether someone would cover for holding the curtains for me. Like,
baby, I was
same
there.
thing. Yeah, Molly was there. She said, "I've got it."
Holding it with Lizzy, who's like, I don't know, probably 2 to 3 inches taller than me. Like, struggle. That was.
Yeah, it was just like
always a really fun game of like a fun puzzle piece to put together, and everyone knows what they're doing and everyone finds the right piece at the right time and we're like, this is the solution.
Speaking of like props and set and stuff like that, this was like an unintentionally really prop heavy show. So does anyone have a favorite prop that they interacted with? Because mine is unintentional. When we went into the little side area that was like on the stage, when Andy and I would come off the stage, Andy who played Julius, I was wearing this sweater cardigan kind of thing that was knit. And during one of the shows, it got stuck on the fire extinguisher that was attached to the wall for the theater. And I come on stage really fast for that scene, and it ripped it off the wall. And I carried it on stage. And I
don't
didn't
think
The
I
react.
knew
fire
this
extinguisher?
Yeah.
I didn't
did not
react
know
at
that
all.
this happened.
I did not react at all to it. It just ripped it off the wall, and
Come on,
The
professional.
fire extinguisher.
the fire
ripped off the wall.
extinguisher ripped off the wall because
What?
it got
That's
caught.
not the story. This is crazy.
Yeah, so it happened like halfway through the show, halfway through our run, and we were back there, and like there's really a limited amount of space. It was probably 2 feet by 2 feet, maybe, for us to stand there. And Andy, who played Julius, is like much taller, much broader guy. Like I'm pretty petite. So we were really close in that back vestibule. So I had to like really squish against the wall, and my cardigan got stuck on the fire extinguisher one day. And I came in, guns blazing, and it ripped it off the wall. And Andy chased me to get it, and he was wonderful. Like he was incredible at improv, and he like made it a whole bit, like made it look intentional, and I just did not engage with it at all. I pretended it didn't happen, and it was just like hung on to me. There was another time where my shoelaces both came untied, and there wasn't any moment for me to be like, I can tie these, because I was in a dress. And so I asked Andy to tie my shoes on stage. And he did. He was great. He was really good about it. But my unintentional favorite prop was that fire extinguisher for the theater.
I think anything that went wrong while he was on stage, he fixed it.
He was
And
the
made it-
savior for real.
Yeah, for real.
Like, what would we have done without him? Because it would have been a mess.
Yeah,
And then he would always find a way to make it like a part of Julius's character when he
Yeah.
was fixing something.
Oh yeah.
Which
And I mean, because he didn't have any lines, it was all physical comedy, all physical theater that he was doing, and he really committed to absolutely every moment on stage. But when things went wrong, like he and I would be like, well, we gotta go, like go. I'm thinking of one moment in particular that everyone else I think was on stage for, where we should have called a show hold, and we didn't.
Maybe. We
Yeah.
really should have.
And I ran over and I was like,
That
help
moment,
me.
you know, when you're having a nightmare and you wake up and you're like, huh, that's that moment for me in my life. Like top
Yeah.
10 stressful things to happen to me on stage and just ever in my life. But Andy
some
really,
foreshadowing.
yeah, our savior. Yeah, get hyped for that story because that's the crazy.
Yeah.
Lizzy, Helen, I was thinking, so of course, I think with like the candle that we had, and a lot of us had trees to manage, I had the umbrellas as well. Like, I really liked my umbrella, and I would pick the same tree every night. We, as the deer and foliage team, all had names for our props. Do we want to share that? And hopefully Caroline will share as well.
I don't think I ever gave the deer a name.
It was,
think
I think
she's
at some point there was a name, but I don't know if it stuck.
I can't remember it. Was it?
I think
Was
it
I
was
Lady
straight up
Gaga?
Lady Gaga. Yeah.
I think I was Lady Gaga.
But Lizzy started the whole theme, I think.
I really like to name inanimate objects. So my tree was Fernando.
And I think
Oh,
Caroline's became Alejandro, and mine was Paparazzi. And so they were all Lady Gaga themed. And then, of
Yeah.
course, our deer was Gaga.
Gaga.
Wait,
But
wasn't
it was
Lady
like-
Gaga one of our prom themes one night as well?
That sounds
Probably.
right. I'll
Yeah,
add it to the list because that feels right.
I think she was
I've-
one of like the first.
I
Yeah.
believe that.
Yeah.
I also
I
gotta
will
give a shout
say-
out to my extra arms. That's all.
That is true. Those were iconic every single time. My track honestly did not have that many props. I had like the candle for I Know What Is Best and my tree for before the meadow scene, but like other than that I didn't have any. So my favorite prop is not one I ever interacted with, but it has to be the Dr. Dad picture in the picture frame. Either the one that Jenny has, honestly, the pink one, the icon behavior, any of the picture frames that were brought out during You Saved Me. Those were always the most iconic. And I could never see them because I was in a morph suit. But at backstage, I thought they were really goofy. Or the mustache, Chuck's mustache. That might be my favorite product.
The one that got caught in the AC unit, specifically.
He was elusive. Every 3 days, Angela would be like, "Where'd the mustache go?" And we're all like, "Well, we don't know. Got to get a new one, I guess."
The local
I think
cryptid. The Loch Ness monster, and then there's Chuck's mustache.
Straight up.
Together. I think my favorite prop has to be my blow-up keyboard for Groupies.
That is true.
Groupies was just like such unhinged energy.
Yeah.
And that poor...
That was me, Helen, and Lizzy, by the way. Groupie gals.
I feel like you can't be perceived. So you're just like rocking out and you're like, yeah.
That was something after Lizzy covered my egg dance. I got to cover Groupies one night and I was like, am I doing good enough? Like, I could have done more. Put me back out there.
It was like, this is when Lizzy spins on the floor and plays the guitar.
Yeah, I was like, what is she doing?
And then this is when we go back to back.
I don't remember
my God.
which one of you it was, but I distinctly remember there being one night after somebody came off for Groupies and they were backstage and I could see steam coming off of their body.
Oh no.
It happened a few times throughout the show. Yeah. It happened a few times throughout the show with different people. It was mostly the guys. I remember Anthony coming off several times because he had to wear the like ab suit underneath and seeing steam rising off that man. Just being like,
I think
no.
He had it the worst of layers of costumes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, going into the big like fight scene, This Is Not Goodbye, where the Bia almost dies. He is wearing, I think, the puffy shirt, the like muscle shirt. I don't know if it was off at that point. I could be wrong. Ask him. But he was wearing a lot. It was like his baseball costume and part of his prom outfit, and obviously on top of that, what he needs to be wearing for the This Is Not Goodbye fight. Mm-hmm. It was insane.
Yeah, I think during the fight scene, I had baseball. I had my base layer. I had baseball, and then I had that huge denim skirt, a different shirt, and the sweater on as well, and having to do those kicks and fall to the ground. And
I just really think it was so funny because they rip my arms off, which were its own prop, obviously. But like up until then, I kind of have to throw punches at people and do the choreography as it was choreographed. So what I would do is I would take the hand of the prop hand and just kind of like hold hands with it and then throw my punches. So it was like I had a little friend.
I really loved the fight scene, and you can't see it in all of its glory in the pro shot, which is one of the only kind of dissatisfied moments I think Morgan and Dan have had with the pro shot, because we spent so long on that fight scene, and we ran the fight scene every single night, as you should if you have any stage choreography that involves potential contact with humans.
Shout out to Jamie McAllister. He was our fight choreographer. He is very talented at what he does, and I think really empowered everyone involved in that fight to do it well.
Yeah, that was crazy. However, I will say, I didn't know we were doing the fight scene that day, that we were going to be choreographing the fight scene. And that was a day that I decided not to wear a bra. And that was a really interesting experience for me because we worked on the fight scene for like 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was interesting. It was really fun. Also, Jamie has way more energy than any person on this planet should have ever. Like, he was the Energizer Bunny, and he was just like, punch me, you can do it. And we're just like, sir.
The right energy, I think. Also, like, choreographing that fight scene, it was not like this is how we know it's gonna go. We just had like a checklist of this needs to happen, but how much we want to do and how much time we want to fill it was sort of like we have an idea, and then we'd get from point A to point B, and then we'd add a lot of flourishes between point A and point B. So it was really built from the ground up on that day of rehearsal.
Yeah. We kind of have all talked about it a little bit, but why don't we talk about maintaining health in a long show process and what it was like? Because I think everyone here got sick throughout the process, and we still went on, with the exception of Sarah, who had COVID and had to take a step away until there was a negative test result. But it just what was it like trying to navigate continuing to do the show and your mental and physical health throughout that process?
Maybe I'm not the best person to speak on this. Since I ended up in the ER as soon as I got back. But
Forgot about that.
yeah, it was an expensive ride from JFK. But I knew the ride was gonna be expensive, but I didn't know it was gonna be that expensive. But for the most part, for the first 3 weeks, I was feeling great, and like I would recommend making sure you get all your sleep that you can. That's like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And like even if you don't go out and do all the fun things, like, or at least reasonable nights. But then I got a pneumonia and had it for like 3 months and ended up in the ER. So
That's what it was.
it was a pneumonia, yeah. But
Very
Dude,
cool.
pneumonia is the worst, bro. I've never
Yeah.
been sicker in my life than when I had pneumonia. So when you said that that's what you had, I was like, I feel you so hard, Lizzy.
Yeah, so doing TK turns every night, sometimes 2 times a day, that was
Yeah.
And I think it's important to mention that we didn't have any like additional coverage for the ensemble. So anything that like when we were sick or injured or something, it had to be covered by each other. And there were some things that like we couldn't cover. Like none of us could do
Right.
the ballet double part. So
There were certain weeks, if you want me to speak on this, Lizzy, or not certain weeks, there were certain days where we just wanted to make sure that Lizzy did that ballet double part and we could cover everything else for her if she wanted.
yeah, it was like ballet and baseball.
Yeah.
You're like pushing her out there.
Oh yeah, and baseball was so confusing to learn. So
hmm
yeah. So I was like, I just got to get through these, and then
We all sort of became each other's super swings.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess be willing to ask and accept help.
hmm I mean, I already talked about it. I got COVID during the show, which was not fun, but like moments like that, obviously, where you have something, like you have something that poses a great health risk to others. That was also the week that my parents were in town when I tested positive, so it was frustrating because my parents are also kind of vulnerable if they were to get it from me. Um, it was so upsetting, but again, you're it's not just you at that point where you have to think for the health of the group. And if obviously me being around everyone was not going to go well. So I did the right thing. I stayed out of the show. I had a few other health things during the run of the show. During the first week, during the egg dance, I fell flat on my butt and tweaked my ankle on the way down. So I was wearing a like little, not like a compression shock, like a tiny little brace, ankle brace with my costume for a few days there. I think managing health during the fringe, and especially because we had that week where we were putting the show together, and that was like 9 to 5s every day of just straight rehearsal. For any young people who might be listening to this or want to get into theater, um, it's a lot, it's demanding. You need to know when to say no. There were a lot of moments where or like it's very common for young theater people to go out and get drinks after a show, and I did not do that very many times because I was like, it was how I took care of myself, and I was like, I have to sacrifice a little extra social time with the cast and the people that I love, but it's for my own good because then I go home and get the amount of sleep I need, and also alcohol isn't the best for your voice, and I was living on a prayer with that a little bit. Um, it's just you have to have grace with yourself when you need to take steps back, or like figure out something else, because obviously we all want to give 100% to the stuff we were blessed enough to do in the show, but just listen to yourself and know what's too much and stop trying to push through things that you don't need to push through because people are there to help.
Absolutely.
And if you push through short term, it's gonna hurt you long term.
Molly and Helen?
My piece of advice is
Yeah.
the hospital in the UK versus America.
And that's the truth. I think I never got sick. I was very lucky in that way, but I definitely experienced the good old classic burnout, which I brought upon myself. And I definitely think this process made me learn my limits on things. Like I said earlier, the Fringe, like even just not even performing, but just going to the Fringe was like a dream I've had for a very long time. So I was very gung-ho about I want to see everything. I want to do everything. And for about the first half of my time there, I saw over 30 shows at the Fringe, which I was very lucky to. And a lot of them were fabulous. But definitely in the latter half of our run, I started feeling just the exhaustion because I was sleeping in a little bit, but then waking up early, getting on the bus, going into Edinburgh, and then being in Edinburgh, like in the city, seeing shows all day. And then I would go to the theater with my garment bag at, 9 at night and do the show. And I definitely think that our showtime being so late kind of contributed to me not really like understanding that I should maybe give myself more time to rest, because I'm so used to like a 7 p.m. or an 8 p.m. showtime that I'm like, oh, I can go home and stay up for a little bit. Not this show, baby. I was sleeping on the bus on the way home most nights. So I definitely had to learn that, yes, there is a lot of things that I want to do, but I need to also prioritize making sure that I'm rested. And I just think that it really taught me so many lessons, because it was the longest run I had ever done of a show. But now the show that I'm in now actually has had a longer run, not as crazy as a schedule, but I've done over 50 shows of this last show. And I think that doing the Fringe right before it really taught me, like, if you want to be sustainable and what you're bringing to the table every day, you need to like nourish your body, feed yourself, eat well, like get over 8 hours or more of sleep. I do most nights, and just know that you can't do everything, I think. Yeah.
I think if I could go back and do it again, I would prioritize like a physical and vocal warm up before every show more, because the dressing room at the venue was shared with all of the shows, and there were 4 theaters in this venue. So that wasn't really a place you could stretch or warm up. And then we only had like 20 minutes maybe in our theater before our show started. And that was all like setting up our props for the show, doing mic checks, doing fight call. So we would like stretch in that time, but it wasn't enough time to do like a full warm up. And I think that contributed to some like injuries I had and just like vocal tiredness. But I'm also a person who like needs my sleep. So I think like most days I was waking up at like maybe noon at the earliest. And like we had a fire drill at 9 a.m. one day, and it felt like the middle of the night. Like all of us coming out of the Harriet Watt dorms were like, it's 1 a.m. So I think coming back to the US too, my sleep schedule was so out of whack, because not only like the time difference, but just the schedule we were living on. Like waking up at 12, doing a show at 10:15 p.m., going to bed at 3 a.m. I think the last week of the show, I was fighting off being sick with like sheer willpower and zinc. I swear by Zicam. I think that is the only thing that got me through that last week. And then the last day, I was in Edinburgh. I was with Lizzy, and I think she saw me getting sick as the day went on. And then my flight back to California, I was so ill. And then I had bronchitis. So
there you go.
I like
The
push
curse.
somehow managed to get through that last week because our matinees were at 12:50, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So like we would get back to our accommodations at like 2 a.m., but then have to be on a train back at like 10:30 the next morning. So I think that last week I've never done that many shows in that short amount of time. So I don't know if this is any advice of how to keep healthy or more like a testament to you can will yourself to stay healthy if you really put your mind to it.
And have zinc.
Have
Yeah,
zinc.
and have Zycam.
Have zinc, get sleep. Amen.
I have an additional
yeah.
thought actually that I think is very important, and I think we all sort of found as the run went on. I, as a performer, when like I'm actively performing in front of an audience, the show is up, like something switches in my brain, and that becomes priority number uno. And then, of course, taking care of like physical and mental health becomes so much more important on those days that you sort of start to neglect everything else, where it's like, oh shoot, I have to be cooking myself meals and doing laundry and paying bills like a normal human. I think it is very understated but very important to make sure that you have a good support system around you. Um, and for the majority of us flying into Scotland, where we know nobody and really the only people we know are each other, it was great to have such a good support system in the cast, but I also think it's important to surround yourself because like I lived in a flat at the time. I had roommates who had nothing to do with Dusk. I Jamie was actually my roommate, Jamie, who plays Dr. Dad and Chuck. Um, for that month he stayed with me, but like to have someone, maybe like a partner in your life or a friend or your roommates, just know that you are going to be sort of falling behind if you know that you do that. It's nice when they are willing and able to help you out by like sort of picking up the extra slack that you are unable to focus on.
Absolutely. I think all of these are very valid experiences. I didn't get sick during the Fringe this run, but I was also not doing a whole lot but the performing. Though I say that, and that's completely a lie because Sarah and I were finishing our dissertations and I was working part-time on the weeks that we weren't doing 2 shows a day. But I made the decision not to go and see other shows while we were
That's
doing the Fringe
I think
because
that's a realistic thing that we don't talk enough about as Fringe performers is because you when you go to Fringe you want to see as much as you can, but it's just something that's not sustainable for performers. Don't feel bad if you have to do that.
I saw one other show, the entirety of Fringe, and that was really devastating to me because I did the Fringe the previous year and was able to see like 25 to 30 shows, and I loved it, and it was amazing, and I had such a good time, and I loved supporting all of my friends who were in shows, and then this year came around, and I was just like, I'm at capacity. And I think coming to terms with the fact that, the intention and that goodwill and those good vibes that you're sending the other performers is all there. And it is impossible to support everyone during the Fringe because we were struggling, and that is completely normal to experience. I mean, we did 27 shows in the month of
Yeah.
August, which is insane, as we've said. And we had sold out runs, and it was hot. And when you have so many people from all over the world coming to perform, everyone's immune system is a little bit different. You're coming into contact with a lot of different people who
COVID was in the air.
COVID was in the air. Fringe flu is a thing that has been named a thing since the beginning of the Fringe, almost 100 years ago at this point. Like,
And just like exhaustion
Mhm.
affects people differently. Like I feel like people sway either side of like you get more energy the more tired you are or you shut down.
Yeah.
And so we had to like navigate that dynamic in the cast as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, that last week I was like shutting down while we were holding all this stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a line that we're supposed to drop our hands, and I was just like, and Helen was like, "Are we going?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
The amount of times in the meadow we were like, we're so close. We're so close. Okay, now.
Ugh, okay.
Yeah, I think, it was really, really hard to navigate being a person and being a performer in the fringe because it really is a pressure cooker kind of situation. And so many things are gonna go against your expectations of what the month is going to look like, and really having that grace for yourself to be like, this didn't go how I thought it was going to, but that doesn't discredit all of the hard work that went into getting to this point. And I think I would say to any, young person or professional from anywhere in the world who wants to do the fringe, do it, go in with an open mind and know things are going to not go the way that you planned them, but that's okay. And those are the things you'll learn from the most. Do we kind of agree that that was kind of everyone's experience? I mean, I know Sarah and I put together this entire sheet of like what to expect at the Fringe. And I think everyone read it and they were like, yeah, like I have an understanding of it. And then we just kept saying things like, be prepared to change your plans.
Yeah.
And throughout that month, watching everyone come to that realization of how much you have to compromise and navigate and problem solve through the fringe was just, I was like, oh, darling, darling children, welcome, welcome to
Hmm.
understanding the fringe.
I having done Fringe twice now, the first like you will always learn a new lesson. And even then, like the first show that I was in performed at like it was like a maybe 4:45, 5 o'clock-ish, like
Mhm.
pretty good slot in the day. But even then coming after, I think is also like I'm gonna go home and go straight to my bed. It's sort of deal.
Yeah,
So yeah.
absolutely. Well, some of us have already talked about kind of our relationship with the source material. Did you go back and read Twilight before you did the show? Like, what tidbits of information from Twilight did you bring into creating your character? Or just lore that you created yourself as kind of a spoof spin-off for the show?
I started reading Twilight again while we were in Edinburgh, and I felt like I was like discovering things that I did not remember about the books. Because not to flex, but I've been to Forks, Washington. Um, and I was there probably when I was like 12 or 13, and so I started reading Twilight there. And I don't think I had done like a full read of the book since then. So there are things in the book that you just forget. I think my favorite line I rediscovered, in the movie, Edward says, like, calls Belle a spider monkey. In the book, he says, "Get on my back, little coward." I think when we discovered that again, I was like, everybody has to hear this.
I feel like that's a new prom theme. Spider monkey or little coward.
Which one are you?
Leave us a comment.
Yeah,
Other
I
thoughts?
reread Twilight and I rewatched it for the first time in a long time. And I'm pretty sure they're a different book and movie than what I saw when I was. It's like totally different than I remember. I was like, oh, interesting. This is totally different than the image that I had in my head all growing up. I was like, wow, they're not as like cool and like suave as I remember. Um, so yeah, there were some, oh, there's my puppy, sorry. Um, yeah, a lot of moments where I was like, huh, that's new. Um, but it was fun like rereading those and seeing that all again and then seeing it incorporated into the show. Um, sorry. Lots of stuff that I would have never remembered that they incorporated.
The attention to details shown from Morgan, Dan, Angela, Matt, like all of our creative and design teams, like they have Bia in the like utterly indecent outfit during Meet the Family and stuff like that. Just it makes me really happy that they will dive deep to find that one Easter egg that maybe only the hard-boiled eggs I had to explain to a lot of people, and why are there dancing eggs in the show? Why is he called Egglet instead of Emmett? Just people who will dive that far to find the one Easter egg that maybe four people will laugh at is really sweet. I I've never read the Twilight books. I have seen all the movies. Going into performing at Fringe, me and Cosette sat her husband Wyatt down to watch all of the movies for the first time, which was so fun. It's always fun getting someone completely clueless to watch it again. I think what was really interesting, everything I've learned about like book only content of Twilight has been completely against my will. And so going on as this female student friend who is friends with Jenny and Anna, who would be Jessica and Angela. There are other female friends that Bella has in the book that do not appear in the movie, which is something that I found out in determining who is this person, like who is this unnamed student. We actually ended up joking that she was Erica and was like the how you like in the rain girl kind of person, but it was really interesting to sort of be like, oh, there is more women just beyond Alice and Rosalie and Jessica and Angela. And sort of what happens to them is really interesting too. I think there's like a really bitchy girl who gets her hair, like gets scammed by a modeling agency or something. Yeah. There was
I don't
like
even know what you're talking about. You try to.
there's some like blonde girl who's like actually bitchier than Jessica, and I think at some point in New Moon she gets like scouted at a mall, and they are like, if you want to be like true Tyra Banks, like if you want to be successful in this industry, you gotta cut your hair into a pixie cut. So she does, and then it looks bad and she gets dropped. I might be making this all up, but
She has
I
another
remember
friend named like Lauren.
yeah, this Lauren, this is who I'm talking about. I Again, I saw like a deep dive TikTok on this, so very
Love that.
small details probably in the book, but it didn't make sense for me to be a bitchy blonde when I'm dressed like and acting like a stoner.
There's a dog.
Hello, hi Maisie.
Going a fit, so I had to.
Your dog looks fake in the best way possible. Your dog looks fake. Like
Yeah,
just
she does. She looks like a little stuffed animal.
yeah, she looks like a stuffed animal.
It's Maisie, right?
Yep.
Sweet baby.
Doing like a little bit more of a deep dive because I'm rereading it as a part of this. I felt so stupid when I realized that she's named Bella because of Bela Lugosi in Dracula.
Yeah.
Who knew?
If you don't
Not
know who
me.
that is, don't worry, I don't either.
He played
Who
Dracula.
played Dracula.
The OG Dracula was played by Bela
And the like the
Lugosi.
silent films and stuff.
Good thing I'm on
So
my laptop.
she's
I can
called
just Google
Bella
this.
because of Bela Lugosi.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this checks out. I'm Googling this actively.
Yeah. When we were doing the Fringe, I was listening to the gender bent version of Twilight.
What's
Life
that
and
one
Death.
called?
It's called
Yeah.
Life and Death. And I picked up on just how creepy Edward is. Like I picked up like because when it's gender bent, you're like, this is weird. Why is this happening? But because it's a woman and a man in Twilight, we just accepted that it's okay. And I'm like, no, this is really uncomfortable. No, actually.
It's actually very toxic.
Actually, very toxic. Red flag, red flag.
Actually, really scary that he's stalking her like the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Like
Don't
the
even
entire
get me
time.
started on imprinting being grooming. Straight up.
Mm-mm. Mm. Yeah, maybe no. Well, Friends, do we have any final thoughts, feelings, concerns to share with our audience?
It was so nice getting to talk to everyone again. This was so fun.
This is like my first time like seeing y'all's faces, I think, since we all went home. Aside
Yeah,
from
and my new
Cosette.
haircut.
It
I know, I
good.
love
It looks
it,
so
Molly.
good.
I'm like,
Um,
yeah, short hair era.
It's
Maybe I'll get scouted by a modeling agency now.
Yeah.
Maybe.
As you
It's
should.
so wild how we spent such like a concentrated amount of time together. Like for like
Mhm.
5 weeks, we just saw each other every single day. And then we
Yeah.
just stopped. We just all like went
Yep.
back home and went back to our lives.
Yeah, I kind
So
of went
sometimes
to
it like
funk afterward. I'm like, where are all my friends?
Lizzy sends me memes and it makes me very happy.
Lizzy sends me memes as well. She's the meme holder.
yeah, she's our provider.
A meme lord.
I feel like
Our
you need
meme
to make a
mommy.
pilgrimage to the Chicago rat hole, Lizzy. I know that's not the
We'll all
major
meet
city.
there.
Yeah, meet and greet with each other. With each other. I don't even know.
Just to hang out.
Just to hang.
Yeah,
Alrighty,
casual.
everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And everyone,
What a
would you
note
like
to end on.
I know, right? Would you like to say goodbye to the snack cakes that listen in?
Oh, it's the snack cakes.
Snack cake.
Bye, snack cake.
Bye,
Bye.
snack cakes. Thank you
Bye,
for
snack
having
cakes.
us.
See you guys next week.